One of the very greatest privileges I had as a young person growing up was to have parents that loved God with all of their heart and served Him regularly. They were not in and out, they were not up and down. They were true Christian examples. And they taught their children to love God and to serve Him. Now, times were sometimes hard and difficult financially. When I look back on the past, I realize that our family was a poor family. Of course, at that particular time, I did not know that because everything that I could possibly desire, I had. We always had plenty to eat, and we had a roof over our head, and we had a good church that my father pastored. Many wonderful experiences happened during my young life, but I want to share with you some things that inspire me to this day. Because times were sometimes difficult and finances were not always great, my siblings and I had to be innovative to do things during the daytime. We didn't have the toys that other people had, and most of the time our play had to do with what we learned in the church, going to services. And one of those things was we had regular times when we would play church. It was just my brother and my two older sisters. The four of us often played church. Generally, when we would go to the place where we would do this, my brother Simeon, who's just older than me, he would be in charge of that little service, and he would generally preach. And our model for church was what happened in the regular services in Dad's church. And by that I mean we opened with prayer, we had song service, we had testimony service. Now, that's not something that's done regularly nowadays, but back in those days when we would go to church, there would be a season of time in the service where someone would be invited to the pulpit and they would lead the congregation in testimonies. And then as people felt inspired, they would stand and give a testimony. And as we played church, we always had a testimony service. And when the testimony service was over, then my brother Simeon generally would preach a short sermonette. And when he finished his sermon, he would always give an altar appeal. And we would join him in the altars to pray. Now, looking back on that, I can assure you that it was not all playtime because we were very serious. And when we prayed, we really opened our heart to God. And we would sing, and it was a wonderful time. We did this regularly. I was talking to my sister just younger than me this past week, and we were talking about those prayer meetings, and we discussed the time that she received the beautiful baptism of the Holy Ghost. We were in a revival meeting at the church. Two wonderful ladies were the evangelists, and there was quite a number of people that received the Holy Ghost. I was one of them. My brother Simeon was one who received the Holy Ghost. A dear friend of ours to this day, Brother Carl McKellar, received the Holy Ghost in that revival. And one afternoon, when we got in from school, Simeon suggested that we go back behind the house among the trees and have a prayer meeting just with we four older children in our family. So we joined together and went back a few hundred yards behind the house, and we began our prayer meeting out in the wooded section. It wasn't long after we started the prayer that my sister Martha, the one just younger than me, started speaking with other tongues. She had been going to the altar each night in the revival, but she had not yet received the Holy Ghost. And in that prayer meeting with just the four of us, the Lord beautifully filled her with the baptism of the Holy Ghost. And here's the interesting thing about that. She could not stop speaking in tongues. Every time she would open her mouth to speak, to say something, she would speak with other tongues. And we as children had not seen anything like that, or neither had we heard of it. So we decided to go home. And when we got there, Mother opened the door to our house. And she noticed that we were animated and we were excited. And I don't remember what she said, but she asked us what was going on. And Martha began trying to speak to Mother, but instead of speaking in English, she was still speaking in tongues. And Mother became so excited. She grabbed Martha and began to worship the Lord. And that happened when just 4 young people found a place to fall on their faces before God and pray. And God filled her with the baptism of the Holy Ghost. Now, the rest of the story is this. That was many, many years ago. But to this day, Martha is still serving the Lord, full of the Holy Ghost. And her husband is the district secretary of the District of Louisiana. And they are great Christians. They served many years in pastoral experience, but it all went back to the time that God filled her with the baptism of the Holy Ghost. And what I want to leave with you today with this is the fact that any time is God's time to fill people with the Holy Ghost. And God will even move in the heart of young people who are hungry for God. If you will hunger and thirst after righteousness, the Bible said, you will be filled. So I challenge you to open your heart and let God lead you into everything that He has for you.